Welcome to The Other Side, Mississippi Today's political podcast. I'm Geoff Pender. I'm joined here today with my colleague from Mississippi Today, Michael Goldberg. Michael, welcome.
Good morning, Geoff. How are you this morning?
I'm doing well. And we have a special guest today, no stranger to most folks in Mississippi. We have Agriculture and Commerce Commissioner Andy Gipson. Commissioner Gipson, thanks for joining us today.
Well, Geoff, it's good to be with you. Thank you. And Michael, good to see you. And Geoff, you and I go way back all the way to the legislature. And good to see you and good to be a part of this. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And okay, and the hat's off. Now, we did ask him, made a special request. We thought he should at least open with his trademark hat on. But just brief introduction, Commissioner Gipson. You have been serving there since 2018.
Correct.
Okay.
I was sworn in to this office April the 2nd, 2018, a day that changed my life and my family's life. I've enjoyed being commissioner all these years.
Sure, and reelected by pretty hefty margins twice since then, I believe. Okay, and then before that, you were a member of the House of Representatives for about a decade, as I recall.
Actually, about 11 years.
Okay.
I planned to not run for re-election in that year. It was in 2019, and wound up being asked to serve in this role when Cindy Hyde-Smith went to the United States Senate.
Sure.
And, I'm serving here ever since. I enjoyed my time in the legislature, and I know that process pretty well. And it's still good to see folks up there, some friends, and staying in touch with what's going on in the Mississippi legislature.
But I bet this time of year you're probably a little glad you're not there, cooped up under the dome.
I'm very glad. This would have been the normal conference weekend.
Yes, sir.
I don't think we're not this week, but we used to.
There's nothing normal about this session, so that's still up in the air. We haven't made any weekend plans ourselves.
Be listening and watching, and I want to say thank you to the legislature. They've been pretty good to us as the Department of Agriculture here and giving us the budget we need to operate, and I trust that will continue. We don't have a big budget. We're a very small agency, but it's important that we do what we do for the people of Mississippi.
Given your position in the state, some obvious questions right now. Whole lot of news out of D.C. Pertaining to agriculture and farmers. And, of course, the big issue, the big question right now is a pending trade war and tariffs. And just in general, what's that going to mean for Mississippi farmers in your estimation?
Well, I think to put that in context, you have to realize what has been happening, pain that our farmers are already experiencing. I would say, and I would suggest, been in a trade war for 5 or 6 years now or longer. China has made the decision to buy a product outside of the United States to go to Brazil and other countries. They've been doing that. That has resulted in a great surplus of our product here in America. We have plenty of food product. We have plenty of agricultural commodities, but we have so much of it, and we've got bumper crops. We have such a surplus now that the prices have been low. And in the last 4 years, something happened that's never happened. We've had an agricultural trade deficit as a country. That deficit means that in America, the last 4 years, under the Biden administration, America has been buying more ag and food products than we've been selling. That is a trend that has been devastating to our farmers. In Mississippi, to put it in context, 1 out of every 3 acres of our ag production is destined for international markets. So you see a third of our market cut due to this ag trade deficit. Last year, it was $30 billion. I think they're projecting now it may be as high as $45 billion of a nationwide agricultural trade deficit. So the trade war has already come. President Trump is in office. He's doing what he did 5, 6, 7 years ago. That is negotiating new trade deals for our farmers. And I can give you a real life example of a successful trade deal that was renegotiated back in 2019, it might have been 2020. That was the U.S., Mexico, Canada trade agreement. Very successful, very positive agreement that was signed 5 years ago. And I think clear that President Trump is doing exactly now what he was doing then. That is getting all the parties to the table. Yes, he's using tariffs as a threat. Tariffs are going to cause some short-term pain. They're going to hurt. But the end goal, I know from the president, from his office, from the new Ag Secretary, Brooke Rollins, that I went to visit with a couple of weeks ago, the end game is to have a better trade deal that will help our farmers more than they have had helped in the past. So just this week, had a visitor here in my office from Canada, the Canada Consul General from Atlanta. We talked a lot about trade. Canada exports a lot of energy to the United States. In fact, they export a lot of energy product, oil product through to Mississippi. So that's going to have an impact, and we need energy. We have a lot of energy here in the Southeast ourselves. And I would say at a high level, proposed tariffs, they are not going to cause any shortages of anything that we need here in Mississippi or in the Southeast or in America. They are going to have some at higher prices for other products. They will hurt some. If these Canada tariffs go into effect, for example, there's a lot of automobile manufacturers that are exporting from America into Canada. So those are going to be affected. But the tenor of the conversations that I've been a part of is that everybody realizes this is a negotiating tactic. President Trump is putting these tariffs in place. I think we'll find out next week what they're really going to look like, whether they're reciprocal tariffs or 25% tariffs. But at the end of the day, the whole point of this is, as in any negotiation, you want to start at a position of strength and then come to a mutually beneficial agreement that will help our farmers. And Canada is one of our top trading partners in Mississippi. Mexico, both of those are two of the top 3 trading partners that we have as a state.
China's among the top as well, are they not?
China's always been at the top. So this is important at a high level. Get a new deal. That deal is about to expire. The U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement, it will expire soon. So I think that's front and center of the president's mind. And what I would say is, should these tariffs go into place, that they are going to immediately reset the trade negotiations that are expected to happen. We're advocating for more deals for our farmers so we can sell more product in other markets, in new markets, in existing markets, expand market share there. That's what we got to have happen for the farmers in Mississippi.
You know, Commissioner, you mentioned the trade agreement that was negotiated in 2020 and the prospect of a new agreement going forward. During the first Trump administration leading up to that agreement, there was a sort of punishing tariff. China responded to those trade tensions, and the tariffs imposed on that side were quite punishing for farmers. So given the prospect, given the reliance that Mississippi farmers have on international markets, do you think that farmers in, say, the Delta, for example, that have already been hit by these kind of macroeconomic forces beyond their control, do you think they could weather that short-term economic pain that you mentioned? And are there any new markets that you kind of have your eye on that could potentially kind of offset the closure to, markets that farmers have relied on for quite some time?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. I want to go back to your first question. Can our farmers weather this? I would say many of them could not have without this emergency relief that Congress passed in December. The act that was passed for emergency disaster relief as well as economic relief. If you remember, if anybody, a lot of people were headed out for Christmas. I was very loud in my support of Congress passing a relief package. I want to thank our senators, Cindy Hyde-Smith, Roger Wicker, for their help on that, for our congressmen as well who fought for us, Kelly, Michael Guest, like Ezel. I want to thank everybody in Congress for passing it because it really was make or break. And it's not enough relief to close the gap in the shortfalls that our farmers are facing. Inflation has caused farmers' costs to rise 30% just last year. So at the same time, prices have been low. This Biden inflation and has caused costs to go exorbitantly higher. It's not an exaggeration to say it costs twice as much now to raise a crop than it did 4 or 5 years ago. So I am believing that this economic program that was passed by Congress really is crucial to the survival of many, many farms in Mississippi and in America. And I want to thank Congress for passing it. I'm looking forward. I was just notified. We were notified last week that that program is now open. It is open at the farm service agencies for farmers to apply for assistance. But frankly, a lot of banks were about making the normal loans that they would make to farmers for a new crop. But I think this is eased that, and I believe that farmers will weather this storm and they will get past that. That being said, a lot of our farmers are at retirement age, and many of them in America and in Mississippi are like, I'm done. I'm going home. We have a bigger problem, a bigger issue as we look to the future. Who's going to keep these farms running? Agriculture is our number one industry in Mississippi. It's really our number one employer as well. So that's something I'd love to talk about as we look to the future. New markets you asked about. I will be traveling to Panama April with USDA, with the administration. We are going to be working on some new deals that'll be pivotal for the future of our agriculture. Mississippi has some great opportunities. Our number one product is poultry, and we need to sell more of it. We have a lot of excess soybeans. We have a lot of excess cotton, and we have a lot of great products that we could market. Wood products, for example. I include that when I talk about agriculture because forestry is normally our second largest product in the state. So I'm going to Panama with the delegation from the Trump administration. We are going to be working to negotiate some great opportunities that will open markets not only in Central and South America, but also that Panama Canal that makes its way all the way over to Asia. And we'll be working on all that and I'll give you a report when I get back in April. That's one example. India, I think, is another huge opportunity for us. I went to India last year. It was my third trade mission to India. It is now the world's largest population. It is the fastest growing population. It is the largest consumer of ag and food products in the world. And so I've worked really hard, and I know that, both the Biden and Trump administration, USDA, has seen this as a really key to a future. As China pulling away, we want to bring India closer in terms of trade relations. And I expect I'll be making another trip to India in the near term and some new opportunities there. By the way, we shipped our first shipment of Mississippi chicken to India back during my first term. So that was really a big development and something that COVID interrupted for a while, but I think we're back on track to expand that and to help our farmers in the long term.
Commissioner, you mentioned the FSA program, if I'm getting the name right, trade damaged commodities. Is that the program they're talking about?
I think, it's I believe that is the official term. I don't have that.
You mentioned that just opened up, right? For any farmers listening, what can they get? It's potentially half their acreage, or what are some of the bare bones of what they can get?
Well, there are dollars payments that are per acre, for example, of soybeans, and it varies by product. So whether it's soybeans or some other root crop, those dollars vary. That's a scale that's set in the law or in the rules. And they can go down and sign up whatever they're planning to raise or whatever they did raise in lost on last year. They can get a emergency payment to help bridge that gap to the next growing year. It's time to plant again. It's perfect timing. So that was great news for our farmers. This law was just passed in December. Had a change in administration. The fact that it got rolled out in March is great timing. In fact, they rolled it out on National Agriculture Day, which I thought was wonderful. We'll be planting here in Mississippi starting now and in April for later crops in May. So timing couldn't be better. They can go to your local farm service agency. Federal workers are back in the office. They're actually working in the office now for the first time since COVID-19. That is a great thing. So you can sign up and get your, depending on what crop you had, it'll vary by dollars. But I would say it's probably less than a half of the shortfall. It might be a quarter. It might be as much as a half, but it's something.
It applies to half the acreage. Is that correct? You can apply for relief for up to half of your acreage?
No, I think it's actually tied to the amount of loss that you incurred of that particular crop that you raised in the prior year. So it's going to be, I'll get you the details on it. I got an email that's got it all broken out by crop. There's about 20 or 25 different crops in there. That is, most of it's row crops. And when we talk about agriculture, I should emphasize this: the pain agriculture is feeling right now. Most of it is row crops. Not all of it is, but most of it is. You get the protein, the poultry, beef prices now are higher than they've been. Cattle prices are higher than they've been in a long time. So I'm not getting any calls of people about that. Those prices are very good. It's the row crops, that excess bulk commodities where the farmers, and that's your Mississippi Delta, the big farmers across the state.
Soybeans are way down, correct? Like 20%-ish?
Soybeans are down, and the cost of producing soybeans is up. That trend has been going on for 4 years now. So, it's time for something's got to give. And that's why we cannot overstate how much emergency relief is going to help our farmers stay in the game.
Commissioner, you mentioned a few minutes ago generational turnover and the significance of that to the agricultural sector here in Mississippi. And we've been discussing the kind of specific trends that are potentially dissuading the next generation of farmers here from continuing on. And when you've been at this for quite some time, so when you kind of look at the geopolitical tensions that exist around the world, technological changes within the industry, the prospect of more extreme weather events, et cetera, we could go on and on. Give us a sense of sort of from several years ago to now, how if you were to advise the next generation of farmers or sort of give them an inside view of how the state is kind of trying to prepare for these shifts and strengthen the state's ability to kind of weather these really profound shifts, what would you say, and what kind of specific policies or initiatives would you point to?
Well, I think workforce has always been a difficult challenge for farmers, agriculture. I know that for a fact. And it has always been an issue since I've been in office. It's worse now than it's ever been. Getting the workforce to do the jobs that have to be done. Modern technology has helped with that, but it hasn't solved it all. Dr. Mark Keenum had a great article this week on the future of AI, more technological advances. Our farmers are producing more than ever in the history of the world. In the history of this country, they're producing more per acre with fewer workers, but with better technology. But workforce is a huge issue. And one of the things that I've been working on calls the federal program, you may be familiar with the H-2A program. All right, so there's a program for agricultural workers, seasonal workers to come and work when farmers cannot fill those jobs locally. They must advertise those jobs. And if nobody takes the job locally, then they can bring in seasonal workers. The former administration had made it so difficult and so expensive that program was really idle. And so we've been talking to OSHA, Department of Labor, even USDA to help streamline that, to make it easier to get workers here. And we also have been talking to local people, young people in agriculture. And one of our goals, and to be working as a Department of Education, for example, in Mississippi, to make sure young people understand that their opportunities in agriculture are not grabbing a hoe and scratching dirt, scratching weeds. This is high tech. To drive a tractor, to drive one of these new tractors is almost a computer type skill. It is high tech to apply the fertilizer that needs to be applied. For example, you're typing in a program. Same thing is true across all industries, whether it's logging, forestry, whether it's cattle. This is high tech industry. So I've been encouraging young people to go look for these jobs and to find an opportunity to work as an apprentice on a farm. I think we've got to have a really solid apprenticeship program in this state to bridge the gap between this generation, that is the existing farmers, and the farmers of the future, and taking more farmers under their wing, young farmers. Young people today can't afford to get in farming. Okay, you can't afford to buy the land. You can't afford to take out the loans that it would take. It's a capital intensive industry. So our existing farmers have an opportunity to bring the local workforce in and get more young people involved. And then I think in time, kind of the old fashioned way, earning your way, running this business as an apprentice, that's the key to our future. And that'll help us get away from some of these seasonal workers that we're talking about. There is a silver lining to you talk about geopolitical and climate changes and all that. Now, we've had some droughts back to back, 2 or 3 major droughts here in Mississippi and across the country. If you look at the last 2 years, there were droughts. California used to be the powerhouse of food production in America, but its water resources have dried up. They are drying up. And the experts at CoBank, a lead agricultural lender, they're telling us that in 20 years, the southeastern United States is going to be the next powerhouse food production center for our country. And guess who's right in the middle of that? Mississippi. So yes, there's going to be a future for row crops and commodities like we talked about. But I see that in Mississippi, we have an opportunity to be the next produce leader, to have more local lettuce, tomato. Look at Salad Days in Florida just opened up. They're going to be a major producer of salad lettuce right here in Mississippi. The reason that's the case, because we have the water resources to do it. Unlike California, unlike the Midwest, we have abundant water resources, 52 inches of rain, abundant underground aquifers, and surface water. And one of the things that I'm going to emphasize is Mississippi must have a water conservation plan, strategic water conservation plan, so that we don't become California that's dried up and cannot produce crops anymore. We've got to conserve and utilize and protect our water resources for the future. And that's important not only for Mississippi's largest economy of agriculture, but it's important for the future of our country as we remain the breadbasket.
Commissioner, you mentioned migrant workers wanting to expand visa programs. At the same time, I mean, I'm wondering, are you see on the national news some fear that crackdowns on immigration are gonna impact farming and many other industries? We've seen some people suggesting, on the one hand, changing rules to pay migrant workers less than allowed now. I guess, can that needle be threaded? Can this administration pull off a massive crackdown on immigration and not affect farming and other industries that rely on migrant workers?
Absolutely. And look, I'm against illegal immigration. That's no surprise to you, Geoff. We passed a bill about it in the House. I'm chairman of that committee. I'm always going to be against illegal immigration, but what we've always been for the legal process. There's a legal process for people who want to come to this country. They can sign up. They can go through that process. We have a lot of great folks who are now American citizens who go through that process, and they paid a high price in terms of their time and their effort and work ethic to do that. This open borders policy has created a crisis in our country, and that's got to be cracked down on. It's got to be stopped. But at the same time, there are legal mechanisms. I see the Trump administration talking about those, making it easier for people to come here legally who want to be here legally, so that we're not having another open borders crisis. There are legitimate reasons people come here to work. And one of those is agricultural seasonal work. They come and work on these farms and they go back home. That's something we want to encourage. It's important that we have that policy in place. So there is a way to thread that needle. We're for legal immigration, but we're against illegal immigration.
Commissioner, if I could just quickly follow up on Geoff's question, I think just zooming out from that, there's an interesting debate within your party between sort of a faction that long embraced open markets, the kind of free flow of labor and of exports and imports, and perhaps a shift toward a more kind of protectionist economic framework. And that, the end result of that debate has pretty important implications for farmers. So where do you stand? Do you think that's kind of an accurate characterization of the intra-party tension right now? And where do you kind of stand on that front?
Well, I think it has to be balanced. It has to be balanced in terms of what the needs of our economy are, what the needs of agriculture are. We know what those needs are. And every year, as I mentioned, there's a program that local farmers run ads in the local papers and in various media. So we have all these jobs. We have all these sweet potatoes that need to be gathered. And they run that. And nobody signs up for those jobs much. Some people do, but not many local people do. So that the need of that is, in that situation, you've got seasonal workers, H-2A workers that need to come in and do the work. The same thing can be said of the H-2B program in other industries and other businesses that have these needs. You have to meet the needs of the economy, meet the needs of the industry. But you can do that without opening the floodgates and letting everybody and anybody come in here that wants to come across the border. That is excess. That is irrational in my view, and it's caused a lot of the problems. And I think it's one of the main reasons President Trump got reelected in November, that people saw the pendulum had swung so far radically to the left of this open border policy. Anybody come on in, and that began to hurt the legitimate needs of our citizens as the drain on benefits and hospital rooms. Those stories are out there. They're real. It's not something that's manufactured. So cracking down on the illegal immigration has to happen. And President Trump is doing a great job of that. But then there's a balance that we understand. All of us, all of our fathers, mothers, grandparents, at some point, they came to this country legally. They came here to get a job, to better their life. And we need to encourage that legal process to meet the needs of the jobs that folks just don't want to do in this country. I think there's an opportunity to strike that balance, and that's where I come in on this. And it is a balance that I can tell you our USDA and the Department of Labor and OSHA, these people of the Trump administration, they get it. We'll be fine-tuning that. But I think that's really the bottom line. There are jobs that need to be filled by seasonal workers and folks who are coming here to become do honest work for honest days pay. And we want to support those policies. At the same time, we do want to close the door to the wide open borders that we've seen. We can't allow that to happen anymore.
Well, Commissioner, one thing I'm curious, you would probably be in a good position to maybe have a feel for this. Mississippi farmers, ag companies, chicken producers, we've seen some times in the past when they've been caught doing some illegal things. Currently, how is that? Do you believe Mississippi's ag industry, is it abiding by migrant worker laws by and large? Or if we see crackdowns, are we going to see raids at chicken plants here again or anything of that nature? Do you feel like laws are being followed now?
That is a great question. I will say this. Our ag industry, farmers across all the sectors in general are very aware of and very compliant with the different laws and regulations when it comes to these workers. But you're coming out of 4 years when there was basically no enforcement at all. I mean, practically none. So there are always going to be some bad actors. There are going to be people who are doing things that maybe they're not aware of what they should be doing. people who didn't do it intentionally, did dot every I and cross every T. When you see that enforcement, in most cases, I think that's what it is. Are there some bad actors? Yes, there are. But in general, our ag industry, farmers, groups that represent them, do a fantastic job communicating the requirements. And I think are ready, willing, and able to continue doing that. And what I'm hoping for a streamlined process that everybody clearly understands what the rules are, and an enforcement that goes along with that, and just to see more use of these agricultural workers when they need to be in Mississippi, when they need to be in other parts of the country, and then they go back home to their families and do their work on their farm. We need that. It must stay in place for the health of our ag industry. But the by and large, I would say the ag industry, they support it. They want to do it. They want to do it right.
Commissioner, one last question. If we may, before you get out of here, we may get your take on current legislative issues. But one last question. We talked a little bit about the FSA emergency program going on. I guess if you look back to 2019, 2020, whenever that was, we had to see a pretty big federal subsidy. I'm going from memory, $28 billion from tariffs then needed to help farmers. Are we gonna? Do you foresee the federal government having to come up with something huge like that to keep farmers afloat through a rough spot here?
Well, something we haven't talked about that is a solution to this issue is having an actual farm bill in place. That is the official federal agricultural policy of the nation.
A federal budget might help, right?
Congress can pass something. That would be great, because then we wouldn't have to have these temporary stopgap measures. For example, Congress allowed the farm bill to expire in October. We've just been patching it together. And if they don't pass it, permanent program, ag policy program for the next 5 years, if they don't pass it soon in June, I'm afraid they're going to have a hard time doing it. I think we got to get it done this summer to put that in place. And that gives our farmers certainty. It also takes a lot of the pressure of farmers off, knowing what programs there are out there that they can hop on when they have a bad crop, when they have a loss due to a drought or whatever. So I think the big picture is you got to pass a farm bill that provides certainty. And as part of that discussion will no doubt include ag trade policy, to close the ag trade deficit, to expand our markets. That's one of the reasons I'm headed to Panama next month to try to capitalize on those new markets that our farmers take advantage of.
Commissioner, actually, we're really remiss. I think before we went on air with this, we briefly talked about it, but we should point out. Now, you wear many hats. You're an attorney. You're a pastor. You're Ag Commissioner. We could go on forever, and we've got many issues. We're going to have a part two on this at some point, but we would be remiss if we did not mention that you recently announced on social media you're going to wear another hat, recording artist.
I don't know if I would call it recording artist, but I do sing. Been singing all my life. I tell folks I sing at the drop of a hat, and I drop it myself. I've sung in church. I've sung at funerals. I get asked to sing all the time. My family, I get on their nerves. I sing driving in the truck, driving to church, driving on the back of my lawnmower. And finally, I decided to put a record, so I give it to them and say, when I'm dead and gone, here's what Dad.
But there will be a commercial release of this, right? Do you have a title for?
I don't have a title. I'm singing my hymns. I'm singing my favorite country songs. I actually cut 8 yesterday, and I'm going to cut some more. I've got a list of 25 or 26 songs.
And will there be a world tour? I mean, give us a sense of the scale of musical ambition here.
I don't have any musical ambition. I love to sing, and the purpose of this is to share the good news of Jesus Christ. I love to tell the story as the song goes, and I'll probably cut that song But the most important thing is to tell people about Jesus, and a song is a great way to get that across. That being said, I do like country and western songs, even bluegrass, so there'll be some selections of that, some good wholesome songs that I like to sing, and some of them I like because they tell a little bit of my life story. So, really, I've never anticipated a big commercial, aspect of this, but I will say, since I told people I was going to do it, I've been invited to come sing to a lot of different groups.
Wow.
And got to sing the national anthem the other day.
Right.
I'll keep doing that.
Well, look, when that does become available, if nothing else, send us a sample, if you would.
Advanced copy.
An advanced copy. I don't think we have any music reviewers.
Not yet, but
anyway.
one day.
But one last thing, speaking of your many hats, if you could put on your former legislative leader cap, we think maybe down to the short rows of this legislative session. Kind of been a rough one. What's your take on this session and how things have gone?
Well, it's definitely been unusual. That it has been a different type of session.
That's a kind way to put it.
Well, I want to be kind. You see a lot of public, posturing, positioning. I think it was clear the House had the number one goal of passing House Bill 1, and that has really fed into every other aspect of discussion, and it will continue to feed into discussions as you look at budgets in the future and so forth. And I want to congratulate the legislature and the governor on passing a bill to eliminate the income tax over time. As you know, I voted to eliminate the income tax when I was in the legislature, and did it in a way that didn't raise anybody's taxes. I was proud of that bill. I think that this session has been so interesting, and it continues to be, as there seems to be a new way to do business. There may not even be a conference weekend, I'm being told, a conference weekend where the final details of bills are hashed out. So it's different. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is a little unusual. And, how things came to be and the debates out there. In another sense, it's always, in a way, House versus Senate, Senate versus House. And that's part of the process, because our founding fathers, those who framed the Constitution, understood that that serves as a way to check and balance, to make sure that you don't just have a legislation that runs away in a particular direction without being thought out. So I think that's part of the process, and it may be a little more public. It may be a little more covered in media today than it ever has been, those types of disputes. But it is part of the process. And so it'll bear watching to see how things go into the future. And I'll certainly be there. And we try to stay in our lane here at the Ag Department. I try to stay in my lane and not to weigh in too much unless it directly affects ag, commerce, or the work that we do. But it's been a different type of session, and it's been interesting to watch. I told the speaker the other night, I said, you should take the time to sit down and write down what happened, how what happened, how the typos were discovered and all that, before time gets too long, because there'll be different versions of that story. And I would say the same thing to the lieutenant governor. Write it down. This is one for the books. This is a session for the books. Somebody better write it down. Maybe there'll be a book about it one day.
There might be. Well, look, it's we really appreciate you coming on and talking with us, and would like to have you back on soon. There were many issues, I'm sure, to follow up on. It's a shame we don't have a sample of your music for an outro. You're welcome to sing live for the outro, but
well, I don't think I'll spoil your podcast. I'm not a professional singer, okay? I do make a joyful noise, and there's some songs I can sing and some that I can't sing. But I'll send you a sample. How about that?
Perfect. That sounds good. And thank you again for coming on and visiting with us. And we look forward to getting you back on soon.
Thank you.
We'll see y'all soon. Thank you. God bless you. God bless Mississippi, and God bless the United States of America.